Well, hello. It is Truth Bomb Tuesday again, and yay! And we're so glad you're going to hop on here. We'll just wait for a couple of you to come on, and as always, we're here to serve you and speak to what needs to be spoken to. So, if you have any questions or you'd like an animal card, Cara is shuffling her deck, and I am shuffling my deck. So, as always, we're going to start with some cards to show us the way.
You ready?
We are.
I've got the horse.
I love it.
And I think this is perfect for us, Sarah Jane, as we're sitting in this place of not knowing, right? Like not knowing what we're going to talk about, being a little uncomfortable with being live and not having a plan and wanting to be of service, but not knowing how we can be of service, right?
Exactly.
So there's that little place of discomfort, and I love horse because it's about partnership. And what we're doing is we're showing up in partnership with each other. We're showing up in partnership with whoever joins us on these calls live, whoever's connected, later. If Facebook, God's willing, we get to record today and keep this for people. But it's all about opening up your heart and being in partnership and really, tapping into that love and power that is the core of each of us. So I think that's just the perfect card for today.
Yeah. I love horse medicine always. It's something very close to my heart. Probably because if we just think about the physical attributes of horse, that they have this heart field that's 600 times bigger than ours, and that they really know how to endure. They know how to use the fight, flight, flee, being a herd animal,
right,
to run a certain distance, which apparently is like 5 miles, before they stop and actually look at, is there something that they need to keep running away from, or if they can return to that rest and digest stage. And also I always say, and I know it sounds pretty cliche, but it's perfect for today, that instead of asking for a lighter load, horse really teaches us how to strengthen our backs, that we trust that we're resilient and that we can endure and carry more than we actually believe that we can. So I love that. It's coming up to my birthday, and it's always a time for me that's much more in going inward than it is going outward. So I've been really quiet outwards lately, because this is always, again, as we were talking about last week, knowing when there's a time to move and a time to rest, and the horse is great at that. So I've got Colette Baron Reed's Wisdom of the Oracle cards today. Oh, and this is so interesting because the card I've drawn is by the book, which is really interesting because I always sort of, and I'd love your insight on this too, Cara, while we're waiting for people to give us their questions, is what if you don't have to do things by the book? I always kind of say, and I wonder then in the judgment of the intuition of going with it where the energy flows is not preparing ahead of time. I always like to follow the energy. And yet a lot of times I find myself judging that as a wrongness rather than a strongness, that I can't be, if I've prepared something ahead of time, then I can't be present with the energy of what is being asked to be spoken to if I'm going by the book or I'm going by the script. So what can the by the book card that I just drew, and the first card, which was from horse medicine, really teach us about, being able to stay and respect the moment?
Yeah. That's a great question, and I think you're putting it as they're opposites, and maybe they're not. Maybe that's the lesson. Maybe doing it by the book is being present For example, you know, our intention for these weekly calls was to show up and really be present for people and see how we can be of service and how we can maybe offer a different perspective on a challenge or a problem or something like that. And maybe that's going by the book, right? Like that's our plan. We're sticking to it. We have this impulse to try and plan something and, you know, think ahead of time. But maybe for us, going by the book is really just sticking to what our plan was. Does that make sense?
It does, and yet the maverick and the rule breaker in me, as someone that leads regardless of who follows, and I think you're a little bit of that as well, is to me, that means I have to conform, that I somehow have to, you know, stick to the rules and not color outside the edges. Right. And I'm you know, reading this, what is in this little book, it says that essential meaning is abiding by social rules and conformity and respecting cultural or family customs and universal laws. So again, I think what's coming up for me is that it's okay to be in the contrast. It's okay to not be neither here nor there or define things as right or wrong, but just to widen the perspective, which horse does very well, because it has always got one ear on the, you know, what's in its immediate environment, and the other ear is always tuned into a wider perspective of what's going on in the universal cosmos, where, you know, we do need, and we did speak to this last week with the new moon in Taurus, meaning we're being invited into looking at where can we tighten up on our boundaries, where do we need to be flexible in our boundaries, but also looking at that the structure of things. That in structure and boundaries, we create safety, but sometimes we are maybe in the illusion, and this is probably an egoic point of view, of looking at conformity as a place that restricts our natural ability to outcreate.
Right.
Does that make sense? Hi, Gail. Nice to see you.
I totally hear what you're saying. And I think there's something, I find it so interesting that the card has the African elephant.
Yeah.
Because when I talk to the African elephant for my cards, their strength is their traditions, the matrilinear structure of their society. That's what makes them who they are. And their challenge is integrating those traditions into a changing world, which is exactly what you're personifying today, right? Like, how do I hold society and culture and norms and standards, and yet the world isn't the same world it was when those standards were created? So they're not necessarily appropriate, and yet there's value in them, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And I think I'm today just all about like being in that place of like, it's all okay to not know.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, is that revolutions are oftentimes, or anti-poaching, or thinking about the elephants and the rhino. Whenever you're anti, there's a bad feedback, and I'm not sure.
You're cutting in and out.
Yeah. For me, it's looking in the contrast to see the gifts in the shadow parts, but looking at whenever we go into an anti or a revolt, which is what a revolution is, we're no longer in that place of sacred activism of actually tuning into what is needed and required in the moment. That we often do a lot of damage, especially in causes, you know, like clean water, or in preserving our natural heritage, which in Africa is under threat daily. You know, the elephants and the rhinos and the wildlife isn't being brought into regard. And I keep getting this word respect today, where, you know, the honoring of the natural laws is out of congruence.
So Wait, can we hold on to that for a sec?
Sure.
Say that again.
I don't know what I said because I don't know, and I kind of feel like I want to just take a moment right now and just sort of ground myself into of what that is, because we so often, don't we, use words to create spiritual alchemy. The spelling is that forgotten medicine that we all know. We all came from a lineage or other lifetimes where we knew how to use our medicine as women that have walked the earth and being beyond borders, and at some point lost that integrity that, like you said, elephants have, that they are so drawn to the natural ley lines and the energetic grids on the earth, that when we come and we invade their natural habitat, they'll break through fences to get to the marula tree or to get to the places where they used to go and grieve, because they do. Elephants are really, for me, that reminder, just like horse, of holding that heart space, of honoring the ancestral lineage, of honoring the structure of the herd.
Right.
And we have somehow forgotten that we have access to all of that creates what we want in abundance, in manifestation, in co-creation.
Yeah.
And that by the book thing for me is kind of bringing up quite a lot of contraction, because going by the book has been programmed so deeply into me, and I think into a lot of our generation, that if you don't go by the book, there's something to lose, that it's frightening, right? Because
there's something wrong.
Yeah. Or that there's going to be a bad outcome if you don't go by the book, or you don't follow the rules and the norms and the normality that's become sort of culturally acceptable. And that sort of brings us back to that place of that separation. That there's always something to fear, that we're going to lose something.
Right. That there's something to lose and that there's something to be afraid of, which are fundamentally inaccurate.
Totally. Yeah. And I think putting the I am into that, we're always so in identification of the I am, rather than knowing that we're the one that creates or co-creates the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions. Right. And that we don't have to understand it. Again, looking at the spelling of how we weave things into reality. Susan says she really resonates with that. Thanks, Sue. I'm glad you're following, because I don't know where we're going, I guess that's horse medicine as well, is knowing when to lead from the front or when to hold the strength from the back.
Mm-hmm.
That we all have our space, our place in it, in keeping the herd or the tribe safe and sheltered and fed. That understanding, if I have to understand where someone else is coming from, that means I have to stand underneath their faulty belief systems and programming and points of views, rather than standing in my own truth and saying, you know what, I'm going to go. Come if you want to come. Don't come if you don't want to come. It's okay. And I suppose that's where horse is really in that resilience of, I can just give the I am over to divinity, to divine presence, or the natural laws, and that I can see the shadow parts of that as an aspect of respecting myself and the collective.
Right.
I really feel like I'm talking in cryptic clues today. So I hope you're following. Maybe we should draw another card. Draw a third card. I always love to do things in three, Cara.
All right, I'll draw another card, and for this card.
Yeah, and while Cara's doing that, if any of you have any questions or you want some clarity on this, what if we could speak this into becoming bigger than it is?
What if we could speak this into becoming bigger than it is?
Or greater than it is, or better than it is. Yeah.
Well, and I love the that phrase bespoke. There's such power spoken and speaking. I mean, I just published a book about speaking my truth, right? Like the power of the word and speaking the word and saying the word and defining. And to me, I've always had found so much power from saying out loud the things that I thought I could never say. And then to rest in that power of having done that. And I love how you're bringing forward all of this, all of these concepts, all of these empowerments around speaking and words.
Well, I love it. And please, Kara's going to post the link below on this thread. Check out her new book. One of my spirit guides, my one that is permanent for me, is White Owl. And that really brings in that learning, that wisdom of knowing your truth. Owl is all about education and wisdom and really holding it, right? That 360 degree that Owl can do with his head.
Yeah. And Owl is information plus experience, and that's where you get wisdom. And I love that part of it too, that it's not just this mental thing.
Exactly. And I think that's what Owl has always taught me, is that it doesn't matter what's happening to you. It's about, you're not determined by the story that we create, the web that we sort of weave. It's really, for me, Owl has always sort of been this level of consciousness to meet me where things are happening through me. They're happening for me. It's that sort of co-creation to remind me that I'm not alone, that everything is here to help us grow. And how ego views it as good or bad or right or wrong is just what ego needs, and we can respect that. I always laugh when people say, "Oh, you need to banish ego and you need to destroy ego." But one of the things that Owl taught me was, all I have to do is widen my perspective. And I think horse goes into that so beautifully too, that what you see on the left is not necessarily what you see on the right. Yeah. But a holistic view of seeing everything from a place of kindness and compassion, to say sorry to the shadows, to say thank you, that allows that place of ego or the mind, the prefrontal cortex that wants to understand things, to relax, so that we don't have to be against each other. It's not contra or anti anymore. It's this place where you really start to respect the feeling of that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, keep on doing it. Oh, Sue, you're so beautiful. Oh, I love it. A part of me loves the fact that we're like winging it, that we're totally out of control and not rewriting the book. But another part of holy crap, who am I to show up here with Kara and speak nonsense to the woo? But isn't it no sense that the ego gets to relax, that we get to let go and take flight, like Owl, that has these multi-sensory experiences of being able to hunt at night. I remember when I was with the lions at Imoya and we were doing a night drive, just the pure magic of seeing this beautiful owl swoop down and sit there and look at me in the dark, not once but twice. And it was just the most beautiful sacred medicine to be in the presence of owls. So
yeah.
So draw that card, Kara.
I did. I was waiting for you.
Tell us what you got there.
Oh, I've got coyote.
Okay, we say coyote. We're South African. We say coyote. You say coyote. Coyote. Yeah. So beautiful. So speak to coyote medicine, because it's part of this year that we're in with the year of the dog, isn't it, really?
Right. And as I was shuffling, I was really thinking about what's the card, what's the lesson that we need to tie all of this together, and then integration, right? Which I think you're already doing, because as soon as you said we get to rewrite the book, boom, right? You healed that that resistance to that card that said, go by the book.
Yeah.
So you reclaimed your power around that, and you got to put it into the context of you and your life and who you are and what you're up to and what you're here to do. So I just think that was totally effing awesome.
Me too. And I just love the synchronicity of, again, just bringing it back to horse medicine and the collective consciousness of always moving, using this alchemy to manifest and know that we have an all access pass. We have a free pass to all of this as never before.
Yeah.
That I am now in the presence of this, and so it is. It's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to understand, it's like get rid of the understanding.
Yeah. That point of power.
Yeah. Yeah. And can we take a moment, because I'm still feeling really flighty with Al. So I want to just something that's coming up, and I always kind of hope that what we're exploring here is resonant with whoever's tuning in. But just that I am the light, and the light I am.
Yeah.
That we can turn the darkness like Al and refract that off its big, beautiful eyes to see exactly what it is that we need to nurture us and sustain us and carry us in the darkness of this. And again, coming back to this respect that we can be peaceful as ever before because we are now.
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like I'm talking total gobbledygook today. So thanks for playing with that. Oh, and interesting. So the card, the last card I pulled is
Come to the Edge.
Come to the edge.
Done and done.
Yeah, living beyond the edge of madness has been on my mind the last kind of things. It's just like in a world that's gone crazy, can we embrace the insanity of that and go to the edge? Go to the edge of all the places where we're terrified to go for being judged as crazy or too much woo or too much insanity, and know that we have exactly what we need to carry us to that next sort of edge of creation.
And can I just reflect, Sarah Jane, because your light is so bright right now. And when we started talking, you were drawn and, contracted, and this is such the perfect modeling of the process, right? Like contraction came up, intensity came up for you, you sat with it, you explored it, and you kept going with it. And you came through that to that point of power where you reclaimed who you are. And you said, you can't tell me what to do. I am the light. I am the center. I am source for my life. I get to do it my way.
Well,
and so we got to see you go through this transformation, and it's a perfect model for any challenge that we face in our lives, wherever that edge of discomfort is, to lean into it a little more, and pretty soon you break through, which you did.
Exactly. And thank you for acknowledging that. And, it's just like, again, I just want to say I really appreciate that we get to do these every Tuesday. I always say, what do they say? Whatever you ask for, the right medicine appears. And I think we are all collected. Lillian says, yes, we can go where we need to go, and we have all that we need. And I love that, Lillian. So thank you for grounding that in. That we have everything that we need to go wherever we need to go. Mm-hmm. And just think again about, the mastery of horse medicine that has opened up territories for us that we would never have been able to go there on our own. And again, also just to acknowledge and celebrate and give thanks to Kara and to all of you for coming and joining us on these Tuesdays. Because together we can go so much further. And I've always said this, we're co-creating. We're dreaming this into being with the wisdom of Wise Owl and with the wisdom of horse medicine and all all the ancestral helping spirits, all the animal guides, everything is available to us. We just need to be open to knowing that it's there and ask for it. Because if we don't ask, we don't receive.
Right.
Thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that.
Thanks for modeling that for us.
Yeah, and I see my third eye is like glowing like a big. And my mother always used to say, "Oh, when this thing used to turn red, she's like, oh crap, you know, you can't do that because you're way too in tuned with what's going on in my head." And people used to get really nervous. They always say, when this glows, move out of Sarah Jane's way because she's in your head. In your head. So yeah.
I love it. How do you want to wrap up today, Sarah Jane?
Excuse me?
How do you want to wrap up today? What are our last words and thoughts? And
well, I love Sue's comment where she said, speak nonsense fluently. You know, it's like, would you be willing to go in a wing and a wish? Because we're creating intentional focus on what we actually want. So it's not irrational hopes and dreams or, you know, wishing and hoping for things, but intentionally co-creating to that space where you don't need any sense other than to tune into your own sensate experience of where life is calling you.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You know, whatever the situation, the answers are within. We have everything we need, everything we want already is. It's all inside of us. And there's nothing that we need from anywhere else. We have everything we need.
Yeah. And again, horse medicine coming up. It's just like, stop running toward a future goal or stop running towards something as if you get there, then your life would be complete. But see the completion of the cycle being in every step that you take, to really celebrate the microcosm, the small steps, the tiny shifts.
Right.
Stop racing to get somewhere where you think the grass is going to be greener. I always say, if you want the grass to be greener, water your grass.
Right.
Because when you get there, it's always kind of a bit of a letdown if you think about, you know, really wanting that bike and saving up the money and going to get it. It's in the process of becoming. It's in the process of creating the resources or you know, the mentoring or the information that you need. That is the gift. That's the adventure of it.
Yeah.
And again, I think course is so great at showing us that, you know, run if you need to run, but know when you need to stop and take a pause and just enjoy where you land.
Yeah. And I think too, you know, Coyote's message to people is really, you know, your relationship with yourself is the foundation for all your other relationships. And that goes back to what Susan said about everything you need is inside of you. Start here. Start with this relationship. And then all those other relationships are going to shift when you take care of yourself.
Exactly. And I love that. You know, it's just like run with the pack as long as it works. And also run with the pack knowing that each individual part of the pack is contributing to the betterment or the greatness of the whole, which is what we're doing here. You know, we all come with our own unique gifts and capacities and talents, and all we need to do is just let life bring in that softness and that compassionate listening and that fertile space for things to grow for ourselves and for others. And I suppose I just want to end with saying, because my mind is like all over the place tonight, is what if having thought is no thought at all? Because we get stuck in the thinking, don't we?
We do.
And the thinking limitation that doesn't allow us to just open our heart space and widen our perspective and run with it back because it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no other reason or justification that you need, just to do what you want to do, to want what you want, to be who you are being. Like, it's enough. You're enough. You know, each of us.
To that. Yeah. Well, as always, it's been absolute fun. Susan says we'll celebrate every step today. Yay, Sue. Share those steps with us. And if you have any comments, questions, insights about what we spoke about today, just a side note, and this is more for me than anybody else, is also sometimes it's not in the going back, because it's like now a part of me wants to go, what the hell did I just speak to with Cara? Sometimes we don't need to go back. Sometimes we just need to keep moving forward. And I just see horse galloping over, owl flying above us, and the universe is really, really there to support. Coyote howling to the moon, and bringing us home to our hearts. So have a beautiful week wherever you are, and check out Cara's new book,
Words of Wisdom, What the Owl Knows.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. See you next week.